welcome to the bookstore. I would be happy to help you. What are you looking for? Okay, so you're not really sure. That's fine. We have a lot more books in the back. I can go look for other stuff if you'd like, but we can check out this shelf for now. Does that sound good? Okay. So, I'm not sure what you're looking for. Okay, let's see. You want something good. Okay. I won't pick out a bad book for you then. Okay, let's see. Just grab a couple of books here. Let's see. Yeah. I'm not really sure what you'd like, so just pull in a couple of things. Okay, so on my sort of, I don't know if you'd be interested in something non-fiction. Got a lot of good options there. Non-fiction or sort of more serious or scholarly. Okay, so like for instance, I don't necessarily want to call Greek mythology, like it's not real, but it's saying non-fiction puts it in a more novel point of view. So I have some things like that. So do you have any interest in, okay, you want to hear some fiction books first. Okay. Are you looking for something sort of more lighthearted or heavier? Not sure. Okay. So let's see. Here are some of the heavy books I have. A little bit heavier. I have, and by heavy I mean they're harder reads. If you're looking for something that'll give you some work, but it's through some effort, you know, sort of class reading, but they're good. Trust me. Okay, so first I have The Brothers Karamazov, which is by Dostoevsky. So if you've ever wanted to just be like, I've read some Dostoevsky, then here's a great option. Sorry. Actually, I decided to just grab a couple more options from the bag. This is just some options. I don't know. I just wanted to make sure we're prepared. So let me put these in a little bit of an order. Yeah, those will go together. Perfect. That goes there. These are some non-fiction books. That's mythology. We've got some other non-fiction. What was that book I just had? Yeah, it is. As you can tell, I like my books, and I want to make sure customers leave with exactly the books that they want, that they might not have thought of before. There we go. There's that and that, and young adult. There we go. Okay, now I'm ready for reading. Okay, so where was I? I was starting with classics. As I said, we have the Brothers Karamazov here, which is one of my favorite books. I love it. It's a really good book. It's long. It's kind of rough in that Dostoevsky does not like paragraph breaks, but it's a really interesting, lovely book. Now, one of the plus sides of this book is, of course, that then you get to say that you read Dostoevsky, which makes you sound very smart. I'm not saying you're not smart, I'm just saying that it contributes, so why not? I also, of course, honorable mention, do have Crime and Punishment, which is an earlier book of Dostoevsky's. In my opinion, I don't think it's as good. Personally, I feel like Crime and Punishment feels a little bit like the book, like this feels like the book he was trying to write when he wrote Crime and Punishment. So, there we go. So those are books I recommend, especially the Brothers Karamazov. We also have another, I think a lot of people like this translation. Obviously it's originally in Russian, but we have another translation in the back that's a bit older, which is what I liked, just because it's the first one I read, not for any reason, not because I know anything about Russian literature translation. I just read it first. At the risk of me sounding, just because this risks me sounding out of touch and very pretentious, which I'm not, most of this is fluff, I'm gonna say the only other Russian author I really know is Nabokov. So we have Lolita here. Also, really nice book. You would not expect. This cover is actually kind of disgusting. It's kind of horrifying. Should not have this. It really should be nothing, but it's a really interesting book. I actually was not expecting it to be as, like, the prose is really wonderful, and it's a tough book, but it's not, I think it's a good handling of this subject matter, but it is heavier because the subject matter is very heavy on, you know, sort of grooming things. Yeah. So those are our Russian authors that we have. It's just Dostoevsky and Nabokov. If you're going to go with one of these to start with, I would always recommend the Brothers Karamazov. I love it. Any interest? Okay, yeah. You don't have to make any decisions until the end, and then you don't have to buy anything. That's fine. I'm just sitting here, so I'm glad to help people. Our other classics would include sort of some high school reading books that are good. I thought I had The Great Gatsby somewhere, but I don't seem to. That's okay, because I was going to recommend Tender is the Night. So this is by F. Scott Fitzgerald. It's Tender is the Night. It is, this is the author of The Great Gatsby, which you may have read in high school, you may have liked it, you may have not. I love Gatsby, but this book is so beautifully written. It's fantastic. I love it. My brother actually recommended it to me, my little brother. I was so proud of him. This was when he was, like, actually little. He's not a child anymore, but, you know, he was reading all this literature. So, but it's got some really beautiful prose. Fantastic. I personally am not a big fan of poetry, and F. Scott Fitzgerald is kind of the closest I'll get to poetic writing. So, that's a good one. And another, I read this in high school and also loved it, that I read, but it's a tough read, is The Sound and the Fury. If you did you read this in high school? Did you? No. It's a book. It's told from 4 different points of view, and it's complicated. If you're looking for something that's just going to make you really have to focus and think, this is what I would recommend. But if you're looking for something that lets you chill even a little bit, I would not recommend this. It's a lot of work. I think it's got some really moving stuff. I'd heavily recommend it for studying sort of about different writing styles and perspective presenting. So if you're looking to write yourself ever, heavily recommend it. But on a less sort of high school reading, bland guys kind of list, I have one of my absolute favorite books. It comes with an enormous trigger warning for various kinds of violence and abuse and pain and rough stuff, but I love this book, and that would be The Color Purple. I actually have just worn out copies of this, like fully fallen apart. It is a beautiful book. This I can't recommend enough. I think everyone should read it at some point in their lives. It's told in epistolary style, meaning it's letters from the main character, written addressed primarily to God, as she discusses her life from the time that she's a young teenager and up through when she's an older, I guess probably sort of middle-aged, I'm not really sure, woman. This, I will say, I do also recommend the movie. I'm not a big movie person, but it also is a good movie. You just have to experience both. If you're going to do one, I'd go for the book. It's beautiful. So, enormous recommendation here. Huge. And it's not long. This text, as you can see, huge type. They're very short little pages and chapters and things. And, I just absolutely love it. So, strongly recommend The Color Purple. Beautiful book. And it's by Alice Walker. Sorry. Just, yeah. If I forget to mention some information about a book, please let me know. So those are my heavier books. Or not heavier books in terms of content, but in some cases in terms of content. Heavy in content for The Color Purple, The Sound and the Fury, and Lolita primarily. If you want something that's going to be a little bit more emotional work as well as mental work. But those are sort of, your literature books. I also have sort of, depends. Some people like this kind of thing a bit more than others, which is Mythology. This is Hesiod's Theogony, and it is essentially a long poem that is it's an account of sort of like it's a telling of the story sort of the Greek gods. I find the content interesting. I struggle with this one. As I said, I'm not a poetry person. It's not very poetry-y, but I just, sorry. It just didn't really click with me. To be fair, I kind of I'm not that into Greek mythology in particular, or history. I'm sorry, from yawn, I'm so red, I'm sure. But a lot of people are really into Greek mythology, and this is not a bad place to start. We also have some other Greek plays in the back. We have some compilations of Euripides. We have the 3 Theban plays, Sophocles, I think. I'm again not an expert in Greek things, but they're all interesting. We have them in different translations, which may affect how you feel about them for sure. So yeah, if you're interested in that, I'd go for it. This is just what I had on hand. I just have to look for the other ones, and that's no problem. Oh. 1 second. I said, there it is. Silly. Here's The Great Gatsby. We do have The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Also a beautiful book. Huge type. It's a short read. If you didn't read it in high school, I'd recommend it. It's a good one, but we do have it. I wasn't sure where it went. But yes, so I said that I'm not really that into Greek stuff. And with that said, I will say I have this historical fiction book, just because we're on the topic of ancient things. And this is awesome. So this is the book, The First Man in Rome by Colleen McCullough. And it is the first book in the Masters of Rome series. I really like Rome stuff. So that's what I will say. I do like. Not mythology so much. This is a historical fiction book about ancient Rome, basically, from the time of the Roman Republic. So this isn't the time when you had emperors reigning. This is when you had the Senate and, you know, their republic. And this book basically covers, it's following two historical figures, Gaius Marius and Lucius Cornelius Sulla, and it's so good. I would actually recommend this strongly if you're a fan of like big fantasy. If you're a fan of A Song of Ice and Fire or Game of Thrones, the books, I'd give this a shot. Like, it's heavy, it's dense, but it's so good. So this is something I recommend if you're not super into Greek stuff, but you might want some other stuff on ancient things. Supposedly it's fairly accurate, except in a few cases. Brilliant book. Fantastic. Love it. Okay. I sometimes don't even know where to begin. Okay. I have so many other books. Ugh, I wish I could show you all of them. Okay, back on the topic of things that are sort of more academic. Now I have a collection of various... I have a collection of various textbooks and things like that. So here's one that's interesting, which is A Brief Introduction to the New Testament. Is the second edition by Bart D. Ehrman. He is a New Testament scholar who I believe teaches at the University of North Carolina. One of those. And this is just a really interesting basic introduction to the New Testament. It's got, you know, it's well organized, it's very interesting, and I would definitely recommend if you're interested in New Testament stuff, like the Bible. Bart Ehrman is very interesting and captive. Like, he keeps your attention, and you learn a lot of cool things. I totally recommend him. As a whole, he has a lot of other books that we can look around for you. And mostly ends up talking sort of about like text authenticity and stuff, but this is sort of more general. Brief Introduction to the New Testament. Would recommend this as well. Obviously I'm only recommending things I would recommend, so yeah, I would say that this is a good option. Sorry. Yes. And if you're interested, I'm yawning so much. If you're interested in this, the New Testament book, then you might want something like a Bible to read with it. And we have several of those of different kinds. The actual Bibles I have are these three. So if you're just looking for something basic, I want to say this is the one he uses for when he's referencing the Old Testament, Bart Ehrman. I think he does his own New Testament translations. I could be wrong on the first thing. I would check. But this is kind of one of the more basic ones, which is the New International Version of the Bible. It's accessible while being fairly accurate. It's not a book full of these and thous and so on. That would be like your King James Version and things like that, which I don't have here in this stack, but we could grab for you. But this is like a good starter place for a Bible if you're looking to look at some Christianity stuff and want to follow along. I also have this really beautiful gold emboss, thin pages, like the kind of thing you'd see in a pew, New Revised Standard Version. This one's a little bit less accessible, so harder to understand, but is supposed to be a bit more accurate in the translation. The translation does vary a lot. it's obviously a complicated thing to translate from Hebrew and Greek, but yeah, and this version is beautiful. Oh, it's so lovely. Has the Apocrypha or Deuterocanonical books. That means that books that aren't in your standard like Protestant Bible, like this, you have other books in it. This is sort of, these are things that you'll find in, you know, many cases in like Catholic Bibles, or Catholics will follow with, or Orthodox Christians. So this one has a little bit more information and stuff. Yes. I also have this Good News Bible, which is today's English version. I can't say I would recommend it exactly. It's sort of a notoriously not very good translation. It's kind of weird. It's got drawings. But if you're already somewhat familiar, so yeah, see, like this is the Cain and Abel story. It's got some drawings. If you're already fairly familiar, it might be kind of interesting and fun. I guess that's thunder. You know, but if you're looking to learn about things for the first time, I can't quite recommend this, but you know, do you. And this last thing is really cool, actually. I found it and brought it here to our store, and it's this action Bible, which is actually really cool. It's got really cool art. Like, it's all just like comics. It's really actually quite cool. Like, someone did this whole thing. And just to be clear, I'm not Christian. We just have some interesting stuff here, and it's an interest of mine. So that one's pretty neat. I would say that's a pretty cool one to look through. For fairness, I guess, I do also have a copy of the Quran here, which is, it's got side-by-side English and Arabic, which, you know, is only relevant if you speak Arabic and if you can read Arabic, but it is nice and it's interesting to have. But yeah, so it's a Quran as well. I have also, oops, that's not good. If you're looking on the other side, I do have this, which is The Founding Myth by Andrew Seidel. This is just about Christian nationalism and the sort of encroaching of Christian nationalism in US politics. I think this is a good read, and just want to throw it on top of these religious books. It's very accessible as well. Largish font and things like that. Worth a read. This is a Freedom from Religion Foundation attorney, and it's definitely an interesting one, talking about Christian nationalism, the sort of basis of secularism and Christianity in the US, and so on. I definitely recommend it. It's a good book. So those are our sort of more, I think that's all of those. More, no, academic texts and things like that. No, I'm wrong. If you're interested in learning anything about language, for example, or something, we also have things like syntax, these linguistics books. So we have Core Syntax by David Adger and Syntax, A Generative Introduction, 3rd edition by Andrew Carney. These are pretty accessible if you know a little bit about linguistics in the first place. I don't know why I grabbed these, but I did. So this would be sort of generative syntax is kind of the thing that, it's like Chomsky stuff. So that's all of them. I also have this historical linguistics book, but by Lyle Kemp. But yeah. Okay. So do you want to keep going? Do you want me to look for something else? Yeah. Yeah. That's all good. So what about young adult? How do you feel about young adult books? We've gone over some other stuff. And I have some various novels and young adult books. Okay, yeah. I'm a big fan of young adult novels, personally. So on the sort of more classic young adult end, I have, well, to start, sort of a most basic young adult book, would be starting with John Green. He's absolutely classic young adult writer at this point. And the example I have here is The Fault in Our Stars. You've probably heard of it if you haven't read it before. It's an excellent book. I love it. I stand by it. Fight me. Like, read it when I was, 20 or whatever. Stand by it at 29. It's a really great book by John Green, The Fault in Our Stars. I would just, ignore the movie. It's not great. Okay, I've only seen bits of it, but it's not really something that needed to be a movie. But the book itself, really good book. Beautiful, fantastic, awesome. The only one thing I would say is that I don't know what you're looking for these books for, but if you're looking for books to read in public, I wouldn't pick this one. I wouldn't make the mistake that I made of reading this in public. So, it's sad. Like, just the concept, that's not a spoiler. It's not a spoiler, but just the concept is about people with cancer. And it's just, I don't know. I'm one of those people who cries easily. So, no spoilers on that one. It's just, the concept alone is sad. So I had lots of talking about mortality and stuff. And it's sad often in a meaningful way. I don't want to say beautiful, but meaningful way, which is special, I think. Special in young adult books. I would say that one of the things, there's criticism to be said about John Green's books and writing. I don't think anything majorly bad or anything, but the one thing I will say about him absolutely is that he respects his audience, he respects youths as well. Like, he doesn't think teenagers are stupid, and that's nice. So, yes. Now, on the young adult fantasy side, well, sci-fi, this is not fantasy really. I have Cinder by Marissa Meyer. This is an excellent series. It's actually a fairy tale retelling. With the first one being, you guessed it, it's called Cinderella, but it has 4 books in the series, I believe, and it's just actually so good. I read it expecting it to be kind of a train wreck, because I also like train wreck young adult novels, like in fiction in general. It's a lot of fun, but this was kind of awesome. I'd recommend it. Let me just read the back. Even in the future, the story begins with once upon a time. To be clear, it's not that I'm not a fantasy retelling person, but I'm very picky about them, so. Humans and androids crowd the raucous streets of New Beijing. A deadly plague ravages the population. From space... Let me start over. Humans and androids crowd the raucous streets of New Beijing. A deadly plague ravages the population. From space, a ruthless lunar people watch, waiting to make their moves. No one knows that Earth's fate hinges on one girl. 16-year-old Cinder, a gifted mechanic, is a cyborg. She's a second-class citizen with a mysterious past and is reviled by her stepmother. But when her life becomes intertwined with the handsome Prince Kai's, she suddenly finds herself at the center of an intergalactic struggle and a forbidden attraction. Caught between duty and freedom, loyalty and betrayal, she must uncover secrets about her past in order to protect her world's future. Because there is something unusual about Cinder, something that others would kill for. Now, honestly, if you weren't at least captivated by the idea of cyborgs in the future with New Beijing and lunar people, I don't know what to say to you. It's like, either you should be interested in wondering, like, when I picked it up, I thought this book, there's 2 things this book could be. There's one of 2 things, and it can't be anything in between. One is fantastic. It could be amazing and great. And that's where it ends up being. It's awesome. I love it. The other end was utter disaster. The only thing, if it's not fantastic, this was just going to be like mind-blowingly just weird and in a bad way. But no, it's really well executed. I'd recommend it. Speaking also of fantastic YA books. Oh my gosh, I don't have the other one. Ugh. I'm getting a one. I'm back. Okay. This is Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. So this is a trilogy, and it's so good. It's so good. I can't do anything but recommend it. It is, Laini Taylor is just amazing. I can't recommend her enough. And I was a little bit skeptical about this book too from the description, which is not on Goodreads, which is not this description, so I don't have it. But it sounded very, like, kind of low random y, and that wasn't, I thought that might not be very good, but it's deep and complicated. It's fantastic. Daughter of Smoke and Bone, so good. I'd recommend it for anyone. Calling it YA almost, I don't want to say does it a disservice, because that's not fair to YA. It should be able to be good, and this is about a young adult. The main character is a young woman, but like just putting it as fantasy would be completely reasonable. Now, also, this is what I got to get, is another Laini Taylor book, Strange the Dreamer. This is one of my favorite books of all time. This is a duology. There are just 2 in this series. I have no words for this. The problem is when I recommend Strange the Dreamer to people, I never know what to say, because it's so good. It's so good. But I feel like if you try to tell people about it, you cannot get across what it's like. I'm sorry. So this says, I can read the back, but the dream chooses the dreamer. Laszlo Strange, war orphan and junior librarian, has been obsessed with the mythic lost city of Weep for as long as he can remember. But it would take someone bolder than he to cross half the world in search of it. Then a stunning opportunity presents itself in the person of a hero called the Godslayer and a band of legendary warriors, and he has to seize the chance or lose his dream forever. What happened in Weep 200 years ago to cut it off from the rest of the world? What exactly did the Godslayer slay that went by the name of God? The answers await in Weep, but so do more mysteries, including the blue-skinned goddess who appears in Laszlo's dreams. How did he dream of her before he knew she existed? In this sweeping and breathtaking novel by National Book Award finalist Laini Taylor, the shadow of the past is as real as the ghosts who haunt the citadel of murdered gods. Fall into a mythical world of dread and wonder, moths and nightmares, love and carnage. Welcome to Weep. The thing is that description just doesn't do it justice. It's fantastic. Just in the first couple of pages, I fell in love with this book immediately. Full disclosure, my copy of this book, totally full disclosure, you know how much I love this book? I sleep with it by my bed. That's how much I love this book. It's so good. Speaking of young adult books and writers that are so good, I have a couple of books by Robin McKinley. So here I have Deerskin and Sunshine. So starting with Deerskin, I guess this is apparently a retelling of a fantasy, of a fairy tale, but I've never heard of it. Donkey Skin? This book also comes with an enormous trigger warning. I can't, yes, like for real. But it's a beautiful book. I love this book so much. I'm not sure why this is also not by my bedside. All I can say is it's about a girl, a woman, and her dog, and it's so sweet. Robin McKinley is brilliant. She's done a lot of books, she's done like 3 retellings of Beauty and the Beast. I don't know, they're fine, but Deerskin, ugh. Another book I don't have on hand at the moment that she has is Chalice, and I would describe that as a woman and her bee magic, like bees, buzz, bee and honey magic. So good as well. And I have Sunshine by her, which is it's a vampire book that's about a character who has sunshine magic. Like, I think that Robin McKinley's books have to speak for themselves, but I would absolutely recommend Deerskin to anyone who was not worried about the content. It's really good. Sunshine, I recommend to anyone who's looking for like a solid vampire book. I guess it's kind of there are hints of romance. It's not a vampire romance, really, though. It's not. It's just a vampire book. It's really cool. It's in an interesting world. It's awesome. Recommend it. Just because I feel like it would be wrong, I'm just gonna also throw in I have another vampire book. We've got Eclipse here. Classic. We obviously have the first in the series, and the second and the fourth. This is the third book in the series of Twilight. Everyone, Twilight's having a new resurgence. Like, the kids are rediscovering it. But this was all the rage when I was a teenager. But it's fun if you're really looking for something with like enormous text that's just gonna like breeze by, super fast read. You could do worse than Twilight. As a person who reads a lot of YA books and a lot of just everything books, you can do worse than Twilight. I can't remember. I think there's someone I saw who does like booktube stuff, who I don't think I watched very much, but they said something like, I don't even remember who it was. It said something like, if the worst book you've ever read is Twilight, then you don't read enough, and that's true. It's fun enough. If, it's fun to either laugh at or to feel as a little bit of escapism for yourself. There's no shame in that, that's fine. I support it. It's fun if you want to look at it from just like you like YA perspective. It's kind of me. So go for it. If you're interested in something that's extremely light, very quick read, not very demanding, go for it. And apparently the kids like it. You'd be very hip, I guess. I wouldn't know what that's like, to be honest. And then I have Ender's Game. This is another of my favorite books. This series. The Ender Saga primarily, but I've read every book in the series. This is by Orson Scott Card. And it's a classic, first of all, Ender's Game. And I have the follow-up, Speaker for the Dead, which is brilliant. I'd recommend both of these enormously. It's just sort of classic sci-fi. As you can tell, these are very classic sci-fi covers. I'm not gonna lie. I put off reading these because I judged a book by its cover and regretted it. I've read these books countless times. There's really good classic sci-fi. I'd recommend it, obviously. I don't know why I keep saying that. I also have it in Spanish. El Juego de Ender, if you feel more comfortable reading in Spanish. Yeah. Alright, and wrapping up. We've got some like manga if you want. This is the 7th book in the Yu Yu Hakusho series. I'm a big fan of Yu Yu Hakusho. I just grabbed this one because it's my favorite volume. But we have the beginning too, obviously. Yu Yu Hakusho is the story of the spirit detective Yusuke Urameshi. And it's fantastic. We also have some Fruits Basket back there in English and in Japanese. And finally, why not? Thought I'd wrap it up with Dog Joy. The happiest dogs in the universe. Which, you know what? It's basically just a collection of dog memes, kinds of things. Not memes, but just happy dogs. Why not? The Future Smart Book of Happy Dogs. I gotcha. It's pretty cute. Like, look at that. Look at all of them. Let me see. Where's it really? Really cute one. They're all cute, obviously. But know, they're just all cute. Look at all these dogs. Look how happy they are. Oh, so cute. Yeah. So, I'd recommend that. Just if you just want something on your coffee table that's cute and fun. Happy dog. Yeah. So that's that. And if you'd like now, we can talk about which, if any of these you're interested in, and whether or not there's anything related or unrelated that you'd like me to look for or else order. Yeah, there's a ton. I'm happy to recommend other books. These are just what I pulled when you said you didn't know at all what you wanted. So, yeah. Okay, well, let's get going and we'll go do that. Sounds good?